I'm Johnnathan Korver, and I am an openly gay man here in Los Angeles. To make a long story short, my dad he worked for the post office for many, many years, which is a huge deal from being kind of a migrant farm worker to working for the post office. My mom worked in the cannery at night, so when my father worked in the daytime, and then she went to beauty school, which just killed me because that's what I wanted to do ever since I was like 5 years old. Yeah. So red flag, red flag. I would steal my sister's dolls and comb their hair until they were like, bald headed. And so my sister and I didn't get along that was one reason. But I kind of always knew that I was different. My father and I started not to get along. Being gay was one of them, but also he was a heavy drinker and he was verbally and physically abusive to my mother. My best friend in high school, his dad was like a really great dad, and he literally took me under his wing. And so since my father wasn't there for me, he was always there for me. So there was my father, who was, my biological parent. And then there was my dad, who came to my rescue when I really, really needed somebody. He was a really important man in my life. I have to thank the Hubbard family for taking me under their wing for so many years. Like I said, my mom had a beauty shop the whole time I was in high school, so I was very popular with the girls. It was great, and I got to hang out with them, and I loved them so much, and I was in the drama department doing hair and makeup for, all the plays and the musicals and all of that. I actually had a superstition about my not living very long. There were three of us cousins who were all the same age. When I was 16, my cousin Richard passed away. It's like he had just graduated high school. And then Christina passed away, and I thought, man, I'm not going to live past 30. And so, my 20s were about doing things that maybe I wouldn't have chosen, but having that feeling kind of drove me in a certain direction. But then after I passed 30, it was like, oh, I'm going to be okay. I made it. So it was an interesting decade for me. I actually fall in love with people. And so I fell in love with my first wife, Lucinda. We worked together in a beauty salon, so we were there together all the time. She was a great person. So we went to Las Vegas, got married, we went to Disneyland, we went to Knott's Berry Farm, we went to all these places. And then we got home after our honeymoon and we looked at each other and went, now what do you want to do? It's like, and they'd say, why did you get married? We were only together probably maybe a year, because that's when I moved to Georgia and I didn't see her for a long time until I came back. When I moved to Georgia, one of my customers owned the local ballet studio. She says, I'll give you free ballet lessons if you do my hair for free. And I said, done. So I was the Nutcracker Prince for 3 years in a row. I was in the Cinderella Ballet one Christmas. I think that's one of the reasons why my butt isn't hanging down to my knees, is because I stood up all day as a hairdresser and a ballet person, so I can do the exercises. So yeah, But then when I came back to California, I met another gal, Lori, who ended up being my second wife. She didn't really want to be married. She just wanted to get away from her mother. She had a 3-month-old baby when we met. And so not only did I fall in love with Lori, I also fell in love with my son, Michael. I'm actually the only father he's ever known. I have my daughter, Brandy, and my son, Michael. That's a path I wouldn't change because those are blessings for me. And so the transition out of that was pretty easy because she didn't really want to be married either. But she ended up with the person she was supposed to be with, and she was with him for, quite a while. So she came around full circle as well, and I was very happy for her. I moved to Los Angeles in the 80s, working in a beauty salon. I registered with Central Casting. So I did Murder, She Wrote. I was a detective in Die Hard, the original Die Hard movie. I did a lot of television, Hunter and Dynasty, and all of those shows in the 80s. That was a really good time for me. And then in 1989 is when I met Albert. After being away from it for a little while, because I worked at a university for a while, I retired from the university, and it's like, oh, now what can I do? But so much time had passed that not only was I a different looking person, I was a different size. My hair color was different. I went from 30-year-old business person to, 55-year-old daddy bear. And so I fit into a whole nother market. I did several episodes of Where the Bears Are and then several episodes of Old Dogs and New Tricks. And I was in the Bear City 2 movie. And so I have a whole different fan base that, was really interesting. It's a very interesting story how Albert and I met, because we actually met at a barbecue in 1988. A year later, it was my 40th birthday. I was opening in a play, and I was having kind of a hard time, and my director says, go out, have a good time for your birthday. I went out, I saw Albert, and then finally it was like, oh, I know you. You're Phil's boyfriend. And he goes, I don't know any Phil at this point. And I went, hi there, sailor. Staying in town long? You want to buy me a drink? And so I made him laugh. We did exchange phone numbers, and then he didn't call me. Like a whole week went by, and I went, oh my, not again, And then, so I called him. I did have his number. I called him. He was an architect and 19 years older than myself, so that's an important point. He didn't have funny little message, recordings and stuff. He says, hello, this is Albert Marsh, and, please leave your name and number. And if this is John, he says, I lost your phone number, please, call me again, call me again, call me again. And I went, oh my God, be still the heart, because who would actually do that unless they were really, really serious? So we started seeing each other. I lived in El Segundo. He lived in Hollywood. But I had already promised that I was going to go work in Wisconsin at one of the resorts off Lake Michigan for the whole summer. So I was going to be gone. This might not mean anything to a lot of people, but you would call on a Sunday after 7 o'clock because the rates changed, and you had to manipulate the phone company in order to get the cheapest phone call you could get. It was a lot different in those days. But we wrote letters, we called, did all that stuff. So then when I came back at the end of summer, I didn't have any place to live because I gave up my apartment. And so he says, oh, no, you can come stay with me until you decide what you're going to do. And I mean, it wasn't a given that I was going to live with him, So I came back and, stayed with him, and I never left for 30 years. So it was so good that we spent that time away from each other because we got a chance to miss each other. And that's really, really important. In 1992, we bought our house. So we were pretty well cemented in a relationship. And mind you, again, there was 19 years difference between us. So it could have gone either way. Sometimes it's like, oh, what do you have in common? They would ask. He created the rules of our relationship. It was very easy to say, these are my needs and these are my wants. And now what's your list? And let's see if we can work this out. He also wanted to explore an open relationship. And being the 80s and the 90s, it was pretty much recreational. It wasn't, I'm looking for someone else and someone better will come along, and then, there wasn't any of that. But what was good for the open relationship for him was also good for me. So everything that he wanted was also a plus for me. So there was no argument about it. There's always that thing in the back of your mind, oh, well, what if he does, find someone else or, whatever. But I trusted, and he trusted, that wasn't part of why we were doing this. One of the things that we really got along about was we weren't tied at the hip together. If he wanted to go see a movie that had Chinese subtitles, which I was not interested in because I couldn't read that fast anyway, he had other friends that he could go with. But, we still had our own common interests. We love movies, we love plays and musicals. We did all of those things together as well. And I will tell you that, his biggest pet peeve for him on me was I would go and get the hammer and nails and do what I needed to do with it. And he would go and try to, use the hammer and nails, and they weren't in the closet where they lived. And he'd say, where the, is the goddamn hammer? Oh, it's in my room. He's like, well, damn it, put it back when you're done using it. I said, well, honey, I'm not done using it. And he would just roll his eyes, And so instead of arguing about it, I bought my own tools, and I had a hammer in my room if I needed it. I knew that was an issue, which was going to be hard for me to break that habit. So there's always a way to work it out to benefit both people. He said, it's never a 50% and 50% in a relationship. I said, it's not. I always heard it was. He says, no, it's 110 and 110. Because that extra stuff, that extra 60 is what you're going to need to survive. But I made him laugh. That's one of the things he liked about me. My mother and Albert got along very, very well. And it was at that time that my father realized I really wasn't the biggest disappointment in his life after all. And so he really appreciated Albert. We came back around, but I knew him as an adult. He wasn't really, my father, because I already had a dad. So that never mixed. And so this is going to lead into a whole different line. My dad was there because he would come and visit on Thanksgiving. And then my first ex-wife was there, Lucinda. And then my second ex-wife was there, Lori, who is the mother of my 2 children. And then my current husband. So Thanksgiving at my mom's was like the original Modern Family. I mean, I couldn't get any better than that. I had gained a lot of weight. And so I made the decision to have bariatric surgery. And so I got that in 2015. Had I not lost the initial weight of 100 and something pounds, I never would have been able to take care of him as I did for the last 2 years of his life. Also, I was taking care of my sister at the same time. So had I not done that, I wouldn't have been able to take care of her either. So I was guided to do this for everyone concerned, including myself. I mean, I still have a ways to go. I would really like to weigh actually what my driver's license says. He ended up being diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia. He wouldn't really know who I was, or he thought I was somebody else. I had to talk to a social worker about it because she told me, you really are in denial about what's happening here, and you're trying to explain everything away with logic, and logic doesn't cut it with dementia and Alzheimer's. He passed away in 2017, and so from 1989 to 2017 is like 28 years. Boy, they went by fast. He was the relationship I was looking for. And everybody loved Albert. We had a great wedding in 2014. Our friends, David and Leslie, hosted our wedding at their Pasadena home. He was a good teacher. He was a good person. He was a good soul, and still very much missed by a lot of people. I didn't really have a grieving time initially because I was still taking care of my sister. I was her caretaker. And pretty much 24/7, she was having a hard time walking. I didn't have a choice. There was no stopping, no reflecting, no. Our backyard has a big hillside. I did go up there a couple of times and scream. And I don't know if hysterical is the right word, but I mean, I was sobbing. But it just got to be where I needed that release. And once I did that, it was great. We put together practices and insurances and things that whoever was left behind wouldn't suffer or have a hard time with finances and all of that stuff. The best thing we ever did was, be a married couple. I was able to not only be the contact for all his health issues, because I was his spouse, which was really, really important, but also the other things that come in the aftermath of somebody passing away. You have to go to the bank, you have to go to the Social Security, you have to, do all of those things. And so all of those things were already set in place. And so I really didn't have any trouble with things that I needed to do. We're both spiritual enough to know that he's still around. He's still in my heart. And there's still a butterfly that will show up for no reason, a hummingbird that will show up in the front door and hover and look in the house, and I know it's him, and that warms my heart. We kind of had a joke about it, and I says, well, if something does happen, I will grieve, but just so you know, I'll be grieving in Palm Springs. I've been a pretty lucky boy my whole life, and now I'll be 75 in March. There's not much that I've missed. I even have a hard time saying that I'm single. I don't feel single. I still feel like I'm in my relationship with Albert. But I'm in my rediscovering myself period now, because I want to get back to doing my crafts and painting and, all the creative things that I've missed out in the last, 7 years or so. Happiness never left me, but I'm rediscovering joys that are meant for me. I wouldn't change any path that I had taken from any time in my life that wouldn't have led me to Albert or the friends that I have now or being here with you today. I'm grateful for that.